Hey, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world out there today. This is Joe Tippens, Facebook Live question and answer. A little housekeeping before I introduce Joe. And by the way, I'm Josh Bellieu. We've got Joe Tippens. We've got Russ Jennings today, who happens to be Joe's moderator on Facebook par excellence for years, right from the beginning. Adam Payne will be in here in just a little while. Wanted to say this, anything that we say on this broadcast today, for one thing, Ultra Botanica, Dr. Deanna Windham, Keith Bishop, who's with us as well, clinical nutritionist, Dr. Deanna Windham of Whole Human Life. They are here, we are here today not to offer medical advice. Nothing should be construed as medical advice that we are offering today. You should go to your own healthcare practitioner that is credentialed, that you're trusting to manage your experience in your health journey. We also strongly recommend that if you're just in that world of allopathic medicine, conventional medical doctors, that you look beyond that to an integrative, a functional, a medical doctor, or a naturopath, or someone like a clinical nutritionist like Keith Bishop that can really help hold your hand and work with your team of medical professionals. Now, a lot of you are aware, because we get a lot of confusing calls here at Ultra Botanica. Russ Jennings on the end handles a lot of this stuff. Joe hears about it. There's a lot going on out there that I would consider bait and switch and fraud. Everything from the sale of off-label medications like fenbendazole and ivermectin to a whole host of things related to using Joe's name, calling it the Joe Tippens Protocol or the updated Joe Tippens Protocol. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Joe. Joe, thanks for having us here today. And Joe, I know you and Russ Jennings are going to have a conversation about some things that have been disturbing you and maybe a path forward.
Okay. Well, I think we mentioned in the last podcast that a whole bunch of fraudsters have popped up, and they're preying on the most vulnerable of people out there, charging $600 and $800 and then never shipping anything, or if they do ship something, it's far inferior product. And Russ Jennings joined me literally on week one when I launched the Facebook group. And I put out a word for volunteers, and thankfully Russ was one of the volunteers that signed up. He's been a moderator of the Facebook group since day one, which is now over 50,000 people. In that Facebook group, we try to keep all of the multi-level marketers, the charlatans, the fraudsters out, and it unfortunately has become a full-time job. But I want to turn it over to Russ, because he's done the best job of compiling all of these fraud sites, and we can even put some of them up on the screen. In one case, it's very disgusting. They used AI to mimic my face and my voice to sell fraudulent product, or sell and never ship anything. It's really sad when I get somebody that says, I just sent $600 to these people and I didn't know.
Well, Joe, we can put that video up for people to see if you'd like.
Yeah, put it up. It'll surprise you.
I hope this message finds you well. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Joe Tippens, and I am the founder of what many of you know as the Joe Tippens Protocol. The purpose of today's live video is to inform you all personally that I am indeed the individual behind every post you see in this group. I understand some of you may have doubts about whether I am truly the person managing this platform, and I want to put those concerns to rest. To facilitate direct communication, I am providing two phone numbers, one for texting and another for WhatsApp. You can reach out to me via these means, knowing confidently that you are indeed communicating with Joe Tippens himself. The details are as follows. For text messages, +1 5104 971 513. For WhatsApp, +1775 313 -3866. Please feel free to contact me through these numbers. I am here to ensure that any questions or uncertainties you may have are addressed directly by me. I appreciate your continued support and engagement in our community.
Yeah, I must say that for those of you that tuned in late, please understand what you were just watching was a deep fake, and the information that was just given is actually a fraudster that wants to take your money. So, with again, Joe, Russ, have at it.
I'm going to turn it over to Russ because he's on top of this daily on the Facebook group.
Yeah, thanks for having me here today. Yeah, the video you just saw popped up, I can't remember, it was about 6 months ago. One of the first scam groups that showed up on Facebook using Joe's name is called Joe Tippens Protocol, with a period at the end of it. There's several of them out there. But then the altered videos showed up, which kind of raised it to a new level. So the scammers are starting to learn how to use AI. They're using that to put together their posts in their group. Now they're doing the video, and who knows where it'll go from here. But one of the other groups you see there on the screen, Lung Cancer Survivor, the Joe Tippens Protocol / Cancer, Cancer Support Community. They're now getting into ivermectin because of all the attention ivermectin is getting. They started forming these groups, and that ivermectin group is the same people that are doing the Joe Tippens Protocol groups. They use the same phone numbers, pretty much the same thing. And
They even commandeered my phone, stole a picture of my driver's license, and they post my driver's license to say, "See, I'm the real Joe Tippens." It's really insane.
yeah, they've used all of Joe's pictures from his personal page and then to put in there for their profiles. So it really is becoming rampant. And me and the other admins, we probably spend several hours a day just chasing down the scammers. The scammers are rampant on Facebook. It's not just this, but across the board, all the other groups I'm in that aren't cancer related, we have the same issue with scammers. So ultimately what it comes down to is don't buy anything from anyone on Facebook, whether it's a profile, a group, or a page on Facebook. Don't send your money because it's probably a scammer nowadays.
Yeah, I would make it real simple. If it's not from our Facebook group, which is My Cancer Story Rocks Facebook group, or it's not directly on the blog itself at mycancerstory.rocks, then there's a 99% chance it's a fraud. I'd like to also say, and this goes to the world we're living in with AI. We have thousands of people every month that refer to the old original protocol from 8 years ago. And it's all out of date. The current protocol is on the mycancerstory.rocks at protocol tab at the top of the blog. And everything else is well outdated. Any references to just plain CBD, or without understanding that there's hundreds of subtypes of cannabinoids, or vitamin E, which I eliminated almost 6 months after I wrote the original blog, and I eliminated that for a reason. But you'll see that people continue to come up with the Joe Tippens protocol, which is not the protocol, because it was the protocol from 8 years ago. And SEO people are continually leeching back to that original protocol 8 years ago and then building on it. So please, everybody, remember that the current protocol is the protocol, and it is not the one from 8 years ago. And it's at a tab at the top of the blog at mycancerstory.rocks.
And Joe and Russ, may I just say one thing? You know, Joe, you mentioned the word fraud. But we're all very deeply concerned. There are individuals out there that are actually selling things that they are calling fenbendazole, they're calling doxycycline and ivermectin and all these things on the internet that are not that are contaminated products, that are not tested for label claim. It's very easy for these people to provide you with a certificate of analysis that they have put together. You saw the video with Joe's face on it. So we're very concerned about your physical health as well, and we don't want you to be taking something that could actually harm you as well. So please be aware of that. When it comes to online purchases, it's a very dangerous world out there. Lots of counterfeits to a lot of things out there.
Yeah. And just to follow up on that, Josh, Joe only recommends Merck products, and there's a reason for that. Merck is a large company. They test everything multiple times before it ever goes into a bottle and is put out on the market. These other products that are popping up that say they're 99% pure, the only way you would ever know if it's 99% pure is to take that yourself, take it to a lab, and have it tested. You don't know if these people are in their garage mixing this stuff up. And we have tested some of those products that are out there, and they're substantially less than the 99% that they claim. And there's no telling what they might be mixing it with. It could be drywall powder, it could be sodium bicarbonate, it could be sugar. There's just no way to know unless you have it tested.
And it most likely is made in a facility that's not FDA approved.
Yeah, and
So I'm going to add Deanna and Keith here for if they have any comments on fraud that they've seen in the background.
Okay.
yeah, and I want to mention again that you can get online and you can actually find packaging that looks like Merck. It's very easy for them to take the front of a Safeguard or a Panacuracy box or a bottle of the liquid that someone might purchase out there for an animal and go ahead and put that on their website as a way to tell you, hey, we're sending you the genuine thing. So it's a very, very slippery slope.
Well, here's an easy one. When somebody says, I'm taking the Fenben pills, I know it's a fraud.
Right.
Because nobody that's not a fraud makes it in pill form.
Keith, what do you have any comments to the fraud that you've seen?
Well, I do. Matter of fact, each week I do have somebody that mentions I bought my Fenben from Joe, or my supplements from Joe, and so and I've let them know. And I have heard several people saying that they spent $600 and never received anything back.
I have about 2 or 3 a week that tell me they've lost $600.
Yeah.
It's really
I also
close.
have several people a week that tell me that I see maybe 2 new cancer patients a day, and then I maintain multiple cancer patients, and I several times a week, if not once a day, I have people that say they're on the Joe Tippens protocol, and I ask, where did you get it? Where are you getting it from? And at least 50% of the time, it is not valid. And I want everyone to know this. It is illegal for any company to put an animal medication into a pill and sell it to a human. That is 100% illegal. It is also illegal for any company to take a prescription medication and sell it to you without a prescription. So if you are getting ivermectin or fenbendazole from any place except the pharmaceutical companies that make them, it is not fenbendazole or ivermectin, because what isn't illegal is to put sugar or salt or flour or whatever they want, or sand, in those pills and say it's fenbendazole or ivermectin. That is not illegal. So the fact that they're still operating tells me that what's in those pills is not fenbendazole or ivermectin. They would have already been shut down by the FDA and the FTC.
Yeah. I think we've covered that pretty well. Now we can move into the Q&A.
Yeah, we'd like to move on to a group of questions that came in, and thank you so much for submitting those questions. Joe, I think we're going to kick it off under a category of the supplement protocol and dosage. And we do understand there are new people joining us now. You may have heard from a friend, you may be watching with a friend, and you may have never read Joe's blog. Joe, I do want to encourage people for them to go to your blog and read your blog, mycancerstory.rocks. That's very important because that gives you the opportunity to then ask if you can join Joe's Facebook page, and you're joining something that's well moderated, that's going to give you some good information, that's not going to be hearsay, it's not going to be propaganda that's out there or something that could harm you. Joe, we've got a question from Larry A. I guess his handle is Superman. He says he wants clarification on the updated supplement stack and the rationale behind replacing vitamin E, CBD, and curcumin. I think you started into that a minute ago.
Yeah, that is the original protocol from 8 years ago. And I eliminated vitamin E for a specific purpose. There's just too many cases where the blood thinning is contradictory. It can contradict other things that traditional doctors want to do, and it can contradict even the protocol. And the CBD that I originally recommended 8 years ago just wasn't the right CBD. And the curcumin that I recommended 8 years ago, only 15% got absorbed into the system. When I met Adam 6 years ago, a light bulb went off. Adam's company takes anything that's not absorbable and makes it absorbable. And it was a game-changing knowledge for me that I could get curcumin to absorb up to 80-85% into the bloodstream, as opposed to what you buy at off the counter at CVS or Walgreens, maybe less than 2% absorbs into the bloodstream. So every one of the onco adjuncts that we've added to the protocol were added for a reason. And I don't want to go into the details, but for example, on the CBD, Adams and the research determined that it was only certain cannabinoids that affected cancer, and they've isolated those cannabinoids. On the and they've added C60 and frankincense, and we could go into a long reason why, but there is a specific research reason why. And with respect to Onco 2, the curcumin, we now have, in addition to that, quercetin added to that product. And the berberine, which really I think replaces metformin as for lowering blood sugar, it was added for a reason. So all of the 4 Onco products are there for a reason, and I highly recommend everybody, in addition to the fenbendazole dose, they take each of the other 4 Onco products. And the dose, I started out 8 years ago with faulty research that said fenbendazole could really be damaging to the liver. So I started out with 3 days a week and 4 days off. Then I found the research that said it could damage your liver, and that research was based on a dosage of 1,000x what we're recommending here. Well, you take anything at 1,000x and you're going to cause problems. And more importantly, Johns Hopkins did complete a toxicity trial that determined 500 milligrams a day long-term is safe. So those are why we did that. Now, with respect to dosage, we now recommend 222 milligrams a day, 7 days a week for active cancer. And because there's millions of people across the globe toying around with this, lots of people have experimented with higher dosages, doubling and tripling and quadrupling the dosage. And I asked those people to report to me any side effects or problems or liver enzyme problems, and yet have found any. So I am confident today that because of the toxicity trial said 500 milligrams a day is safe, I'm confident that doubling the dosage to 444 milligrams a day is safe if people want to try that.
Yeah, and Joe, you always recommend individuals, because it's an inexpensive safeguard, to go in and get their liver enzymes checked. You
Yeah,
know, 60, 90 days. Your doctor will recommend that. If you've got insurance, you can say, I'd like to do that. And so that's the, and you paying out of pocket for that is very inexpensive as well. I'd also just like to briefly mention, if you notice Adam and I being strangely silent as it relates to talking much about the onco products, we're only allowed under FTC and FDA regulations to call those an adjunctive supplement protocol. At the end of the day, even though we initially were a biotech company, we're a supplement manufacturing company that formulates, does unique innovations with patented technology, as Joe referenced. But the reality is we can't get into saying certain things online. So,
But
Joe?
Deanna and Keith can certainly talk about them in a little bit of water. Maybe just in response to dosing and the utility of fenbendazole and the pathway products. Deanna and Keith, how do you guys approach dosing your patients or making recommendations in terms of these products and other things that you might take into consideration? Maybe Deanna, you can start.
So I have a what I call a foundational protocol in cancer, and I typically recommend that or suggest that all people with cancer be on this foundational protocol. And the foundational protocol includes the Joe Tippens protocol in it with the fenbendazole, the 4 Ultra Botanica products. And those are super powerful. I use them by the dosing that's on the labels. So I don't vary from that very much. And the fenbendazole, I typically use 222 once or twice a day. I have never, ever recommended that people go above that. As Joe said, the research just doesn't support it. What we know so far, it works at that dosage. There's no reason to push it farther. You don't get better benefit from more.
exactly.
So the fenbendazole 222 twice a day, the supplements as recommended, that is a very powerful way to start in cancer.
Kathy R. asks, is fenbendazole effective alone or are the additional supplements necessary? That's a loaded question. Out of the 5,000 success cases that I know of today, other than me, I bet you at least 500 or 1,000 of them did fenben only and had success. However, I think that the 4 onco adjuncts are game changers in terms of increasing the efficacy.
Yeah, and Kathy's question is so loaded because, and I think that Deanna and Keith could speak to this as well. It's a very loaded question because many people are on chemotherapeutic drugs. They may be on radiation. They may be on immunotherapy. And so supplements and those things combined have their own unique experience with every individual. And so I think it's important when you ask a question like that, you can't just give a shotgun answer like that because a health professional like Keith or Deanna is going to take a health history and take into consideration these other things. Is there any response or comment from you, Keith or Deanna, related to what I just said?
Sure. I think it's important. Cancer, cells. As a matter of fact, almost any health issue, there's more than just one cause or one particular step that we need to take care of. So, fenbendazole does have a few different activities in the cancer cells, while each of these other supplements have other benefits. For example, most of them, just one of the benefits of almost every single one of these ingredients is reducing inflammation issues in the body. And inflammation is a driver of cancer. So if we don't address the underlying issue going on in the body, some practitioners will call that the terrain, or I'll call it the environment inside the body. We may kind of knock the cancer down, but we may not be able to get to some of the stem cells and the cells that are sleeping and hiding out. So we have to, kind of hit it from several different mechanisms. That's why actually, we have anti-inflammatory, blood glucose control, growth inhibitors, and various different things in these supplements to work in addition to, even in oncology, they don't give you one chemotherapy drug. They give you 2 or 3 things now, maybe even more, because cancer cells can adapt to just one particular item.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Keith.
Let's move on to cancer prevention and maintenance. Um, Two things. Once you're NED, no evidence of disease for, I believe, at least 2 years, I think you should go on a maintenance protocol of 3 days on and 4 days off. And even still, maybe you want to pulse 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. I don't think there's a need for you to stay on it 7 days a week indefinitely. And I constantly get asked the question, what if I just want to take it as a preventative medicine? And I believe the downside risk is so low, if not zero, that anybody wants to take fenbendazole and this entire protocol 3 days a week as a preventative. It's the downside risk is zero, and there's ample evidence of upside. So I'd say why not?
Dr. Windham, any comments on that in terms of maintenance?
Yeah, I typically do. Cancer has the reason that fenbendazole works for some people and not others is because cancers typically has 10 aspects of cancer, and between fenbendazole and the 4 supplements, I do a sensitivity test for cancer cells, and I see that those 5 things are treating about 80% of the epigenetic changes and the pathways that are most commonly used in cancer. And so once people are through that, if they're not working with a doctor or integrative practitioner, then I usually recommend doing the protocol 3 days a week. So that's what we go to, unless they're doing circulating tumor cell testing or working with a practitioner that has a better eye on what is happening with them.
Thanks.
Well, there's quite a few questions here that all cover that same question.
Right.
So somebody asked about combining with conventional treatments.
We had at least 3 questions there talking about combining with chemotherapy, and is there any risk for organ damage? Diana asked, and Melissa asked, is there specifically about combining fenbendazole and chemotherapy for lymphoma?
Well,
Joe?
first of all, I have yet to find a cancer subtype that it hasn't worked on. So when people keep asking about different subtypes of cancer, it's a little frustrating. However, there is one caution that your Onco2 product should not be taken on the day before, day of, and day after active chemo, because it could negatively impact the chemo itself. Broadly, I recommend to people to take my protocol concurrent with and parallel to anything and everything traditional oncologists want to throw at it, because I don't think it'll contradict what they're doing, and I don't think there's any downside risk to doing that. Now, somebody asked, Lindsay asked, can you use Fenbos on chemotherapy days? Absolutely. I don't think there's reason to stop because you're on chemotherapy. The only exception is the Onco2 curcumin product.
And there are circumstances where Onco2 can be compatible and might synergize chemo, but those are the questions that clinical nutritionists like Keith Bishop or Deanna can answer. But we don't want to. Please don't take the risk of combining pathway 2 with chemotherapy unless you get qualified health advice from clinical nutritionists, a naturopath, or a functional MD like Dr. Windham.
So, quite a few questions have come in about ivermectin, and I'm not anti-ivermectin. I just believe we need to be focused on our protocol only. And if somebody wants to add ivermectin to the protocol, they should do that. I'm not recommending it, but that doesn't mean somebody shouldn't do it. I don't believe there's risk of organ damage combining chemo and fenben. And I'm pretty sure people stick to the protocol as dosed in the blog on the protocol tab. The downside risk is very, very low. And kind of rule number one of medicine is that don't make it worse. And I don't believe this protocol is going to make anything worse.
I'd like to circle back to Keith and Deanna on that last topic that we had, combining with conventional treatments. What I found missing from some of the answers, and I'd love for you to address that, is we do understand that there are risks associated with chemotherapy. We're all aware of that. We know it is the recommended protocol under standard of care. But I think one of the things that I would love to hear addressed is, are there natural substances that one can take that if you're undergoing chemo, you now have something that's actually nourishing the immune system of the body or helping to protect the immune system while it's taking the assault of the chemotherapy that's being done? Deanna, Keith?
Hi there. Okay, so I about 70% of the people that I work with are doing a combination of um, traditional therapies along with their integrative therapies, and about 30% or so are doing just an integrative protocol. And so we actually have a lot of information on people, and I'm not the only one. There is a lot of research on this. There are a lot of doctors around the country that are treating cancer integratively and doing research on it. What we know is if you are on supplements while you are doing chemotherapy, that the chemotherapy works better, has longer lasting impact, and has lower rates of side effects. And I
Beautiful.
have not
Beautiful.
personally seen any interactions. I mean, that's not true. Sorry, let me back up a little bit. I haven't seen very many interactions, and the ones that are there are ones that we will typically tell you about before you go in. But as far as fenbendazole, I haven't seen anything that I've had to worry about, except when a chemotherapy drug itself is damaging the liver, and then it makes it hard for anything to pass through the liver. But that's not
Right,
because
right,
fenbendazole is a problem.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
right.
That
Very
makes a lot of
good. That was an
And
excellent
I just
answer.
want to put one warning out there. We've had a couple of people like, they think one is good, two is better, three is amazing. We've had a number of reports where people are combining fenbendazole, mebendazole, and ivermectin, and that we've learned is actually neurotoxic. People lose the sense of reality. They become disoriented progressively. So it's not like it happens overnight. So people might think that they're having progressive dementia or Alzheimer's disease. No, if you take all three together, you're actually creating a neurotoxic cocktail. So don't do that, please.
Yeah, we mentioned that based on a personal experience, and I'll leave it at that.
Two people that
Yes.
we know that had done that, and it seems logical. Wow, I'm going to do fenben, mebendazole, and ivermectin. It's very expensive to do all three, but there's no utility, and it actually causes neurotoxicity. So
Right.
let's move on.
So the question keeps coming up, Finben versus Meben. And I've done a mountain of research myself. And I happen to believe, and this is just one man's opinion from my own experience, that Finben has some functions that Meben doesn't have. And I think the primary one is in the third pathway that we know Finben works is producing healthy new wild type P53, the cancer killing gene, that that Finben is superior to Meben for that third. Knocking out microtubules and interrupting the cancer cell's ability to metabolize sugar, Meben and Finben are probably about the same. The only confusion happens because Meben has been FDA approved and Finben has not. But for me, I would, if I had cancer again tomorrow, I would go back to 7 days a week of fenbendazole instead of 3 days a week.
Yep.
Diet and lifestyle. Uh, Boy, this is one that I always get a chuckle out of because I didn't practice what I preached. you know, yes, if you can do anything that'll lower blood sugar, you should do it. I think Keith and Diana would agree with me. But I've always just eaten what I wanted to eat, lived the lifestyle I wanted to live, and it's worked for me and thousands of others. So I in a perfect world, you should uh, change your diet habit and your workout habit to uh, lower your blood sugar as much as possible.
Yeah, there's so much evidence to support the fact that cancer is not a somatic disease, a somatic genomic disease, but it's actually a metabolic response to um, uh, a very hostile environment which results in damaged mitochondria and then a number of adaptations that more represent an ancient presentation of cells rather than our modern presentation of cells. Uh, it's okay. And so what we're seeing is that cancer cells are only out for their own survival. They're not out for the survival of the body. And that's what we're fighting. We're fighting an ancient foe that is trying to take over and survive in a very hostile environment.
Joe, I'd like to bring up something that I've heard you mention before, and having been on the phone with hundreds of people, and Keith and Deanna may want to weigh in on this as well. Joe, it's almost as if when I meet someone on the phone or in person that's on this journey, their attitude and the way they are approaching this from a mental and a spiritual standpoint can almost seemingly be the determining factor of the trajectory of their journey to back to health. Would you address that for a moment? Because
Yeah,
I know this is a big part of your DNA.
yeah. Well, so I didn't learn about Bruce Lipton and his book, The Biology of Belief, until after I was in remission and had no cancer. But looking back, with hindsight being 2020, I came to the conclusion that some percentage of my success, which I can't quantify, but some percentage of my success was that I'm just wired to be positive.
Mm-hmm.
And the day after I was told that I had 3 to 6 months to live, go home and hire hospice, get your affairs in order, say your goodbyes. I can't explain why to anybody, but I was 100% positive that they were full of it. And and then I look back with hindsight being 2020 after reading Dr. Lipton's book and watching his 2.5 hour lecture on YouTube, which I highly recommend everybody do. His lectures on YouTube range from a half hour to an hour to hour and a half to 2.5. I recommend everybody watch the 2.5 hour version because this guy scientifically has proven that your thoughts coming out of your brain affect you at the cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's on the positive side. I infer from that, maybe somebody can correct me, but I also think that if you're generally negative, that's also going to affect you at the cellular level and not in a good way. So I really believe constant positive vibes affect cancer. I really do. I really do.
And Adam, you and I have been attending conferences over and over for the last 3 years. And one of the recurring themes at these conferences is that almost every doctor that we see that gets up and begins to talk about protocols related to autoimmune or cancer or anything else, they say, oh, and there's been a component we've been missing within our practices for years that now we literally have people in-house helping individuals with their emotions, with trauma, with unforgiveness and bitterness, because we're seeing a direct correlation in our own practices of the attitude, as Joe references with Bruce Lipton, and the degree of how quickly they begin to heal, right?
There's definitely a spiritual emotional aspect to the disease itself that manifests itself in energy and cellular behaviors that can result in cancer. And in some circumstances, cancers are not resolving because people have a very negative attitude about life
So
and are just resigned.
Peggy, see,
Deanna.
no, here.
Peggy
Oh,
up
I
here.
see. Gotcha.
Yeah, Peggy and Kathy just asked again.
What's the
name of it?
video?
So the guy's name is Bruce Lipton, like the tea, and his uh, lectures and book are called The Biology of Belief. And the 2.5 hour lecture out on YouTube is the one I recommend.
That's good.
Yeah,
Or,
I suspect Deanna was
or go to the trouble to read the book.
right.
There is actually a very strong connection to what we eat and how we live, our positive or negative attitudes, but also the foods that we eat. Keith and Deanna, maybe a couple of comments about your metabolic approach to cancer in regards to Joe's protocol and your recommendations to people.
Well, I typically will try to address the metabolic aspect, including blood glucose and physical activity, exercise. Um, Although we have to be careful, a lot of people are doing an extreme keto or carnivore, and or removing too many food groups from their diet, and so like some people may be just doing juicing, and and so that can actually create, and actually a lot of my clients that I see for the first time are actually physically and therefore even emotionally in a bad spot because they're malnourished, and because they are not eating appropriately and getting the right balance of proteins and fats and carbs. So, but we do have to be careful. I'm a big um, tester. I love to evaluate body composition and follow that, make sure that we're maintaining our muscle and bone tissue. And if we lose a little fat, that can be okay. But even blood glucose levels and ketones, but following that to figure out, but everybody's different. So we always have to make these adjustments, for that. It's a very important part of this whole picture of not just the fin bin and supplements, but also our lifestyle and spiritual and emotional health.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Deanna, would you weigh in on that? And by the way, that's Keith Bishop of PrevailOverCancer.com, a beautiful website with a lot of good free information for you to kind of set your compass toward a health journey.
And I would say also that the Prevail Over Cancer site has so much information. I send every single one of my cancer patients to Keith Bishop's website. He is my go-to person for a diet in cancer. And whenever I'm addressing cancer, there are actually 5 aspects of cancer that we need to be looking at, or 5 aspects of things that contribute to cancer. And what's great about the Joe Tippens protocol is that protocol is actually addressing pieces of all of those parts, which is why it works for a lot of people. But if it's not working for people, then it's because it's what the cancer that you have or the cancer that's in your body is not being addressed by this protocol. We're missing something. That's the time to bring in help. And I also wanted to say that the mind is one of those 5 categories, and I address with every single person in the first visit or 2. We are talking about mindset. How do you feel? What are you thinking? What do you believe? You cannot heal from cancer if you believe that you can't. You have to believe that you can do anything, or you can't do it. It was Napoleon Hill that said, whatever you believe is true. I mean, whatever you believe you can achieve, you have to believe it.
Right. Yeah, and that's Dr. Deanna Windham of WholeHumanLife.com. We appreciate Keith and Deanna's contributions here to set the table for you on your health journey.
Somebody asked effectiveness of liquid and paste forms of Panicure and Safeguard. I've got some great stories about that. I've got
And people using it topically too.
I've got dozens of successes of people putting the paste form topically directly on skin cancers and having amazing results almost immediately. And of course, over the years, I've had a lot of people on feeding tubes that really just couldn't do the powder. And the liquid form is perfect for people on a feeding tube or have that problems with swallowing the powder.
Yeah, make sure you do the math correctly when you're going into these
Yeah.
pastes and these liquids. Yeah, right?
Yeah, because they are typically a milligram per milliliter of liquid, for example, and so you would need 2.5 or 4 milliliters to get the uh, 400 milligrams. So you just have to do the adjustment on
Right.
that.
So-
Divide by 10.
So the Safeguard liquid for goats and cattle has been when I had cancer 2 years ago. I used the for goats and cattle. It's 100 milligrams per ml in a 1 liter bottle. It's only $160 on Amazon, and that one bottle was enough from over a year's worth of taking 222 milligrams a day. Very cost effective and very easy to dose. Just half a tablespoon was enough for me, and certainly it's a Merck product, so you get something that's high quality, and getting the right dose is super helpful.
Correct.
So there's a category at the bottom here, and perhaps Keith and Deanna can weigh in on this. There's a lot of time. We hear this in the circles that we run in. Adam and I do with integrated functional orthomolecular
Complementary therapy.
people talking about red light therapies, methylene blue, melatonin, a whole host of adjunctive therapies that are out there and that people are using, and they're using it under the auspices of a recommendation from their health practitioner, such as a Keith or such as a Deanna Windham. I don't want to discard those. I have plenty of people that I speak with. I know they do as well, and they recommend. We want you to know, Deanna is so kind to having looked at the products we have, saying they really move in this 80% realm of addressing a broad number of these things. But we want to let you know, we're not the people that are the one-stop shop for everything in the world. There's so many other things that are being recommended by other clinicians out there, health practitioners that have boots on the ground information and research that can also help you, which is why we say, please add someone to your team, like a Keith, like a Deanna, or someone else. And, Keith, Deanna, any comments there?
I've been trying to answer the posts that are coming through for people.
I've noticed that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, you were asking about. I'm sorry, I got a little.
There's just so many. There's so many other therapies that are being recommended by practitioners like yourself that may fall outside that 80% group you mentioned. I think there are many actually, and we never want people to think that we claim all the answers. We don't. There's great practitioners doing amazing things out there. I've always said that the last 20 plus years I've studied this unique health condition called cancer. I've seen so many people make it through their journey to the other side without all kinds of things that we're aware of today. So it's quite remarkable.
And I see a lot of good practitioners too, doing a lot of therapies, like from OnC-ANP. I just want people to have a tailored, personalized approach to cancer and
Right.
not a hodgepodge
Right.
approach. That's my big thing. Don't
Yep.
do hodgepodge.
Yep,
Yeah.
agreed.
Do a tailored
Agreed.
approach to you. That's always the best.
I think the key here is that there are tools that are that integrated physicians, functional doctors like Dr. Windham have at their disposal that can actually look at cellular response to these different nutraceutical interventions and to different chemotherapeutic interventions, and can measure the susceptibilities and the actual nature of the metabolic dysfunction with these different cancers.
And then they can adjust and they can pivot,
Yeah,
or
we-
they can
we-
add new things or take things away as they see fit.
We provide to physicians actually a very comprehensive analysis of over 100 different cancers that gives them the ability to start their dosing protocols with our stuff and with fenbendazole in order to tailor the dosing to the cancer. And I think that's starting with the Joe Tippens protocol is a great start, but getting specific recommendations from a clinical nutritionist and or functional doctor is super important. I also want to mention, because I think this is really important, if anybody is on disability or on Social Security with limited income, we at Ultra Botanica have programs to significantly discount our products to you. You just need to call us, and we have a simple evaluation that you can do. We want to make sure that if you are deciding to do the Joe Tippens protocol, that it's always available and affordable.
So I just saw several questions come up to people confused about what we just said about liquid and paste.
Sure, go ahead.
So liquid, if you want to take 500 milligrams, that is 1 teaspoon of the liquid. If you want to take 250 milligrams, it's a half a teaspoon. And somebody asked about the paste form on a basal cell carcinoma. I mean, the people that I know have had success with it, they just put some on their finger and just rubbed it on the cancer twice a day. And it really wasn't a dosage; it was just enough to cover the actual cancer spot.
That's good to know. It's so it doesn't just work systemically; it works actually topically.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a company, there's a question here related to us, Adam, doing any kind of collaborations with medical professionals and things. We're very welcome to that. We're open to that all the time. A lot of the people we interact with, Adam, are so very busy that as much as they'd like to work directly with us and build relationship to do things and do research, it has been a difficult challenge, and that's why you've engaged your friends over at the Benbrook Laboratories under the OU Health Sciences Center to do some ongoing research related to cannabinoids at this time, and so to help kind of validate and set the frame for what Joe started out with is there's CBD, and there's all kinds of CBD, and then there's what these people have been doing with cannabinoids. You want to address that, Adam?
Sure. We have active ongoing research with the University of Oklahoma out of Doris Benbrook's labs under Vishal, Dr. Vishal and his group, where we're researching all of these different fractions of frankincense, and we're also continuing our research on the cannabinoids, where we have started research with H.K. Lin a number of years ago, identifying that it's the acidic cannabinoids that really are responsible for a beneficial biological action in cancer. And there are also very specific fractions of frankincense that are beneficial, and there are a number of fractions of frankincense that are not beneficial, including different cultivars. So our current formulation of Pathway 1 is the beneficial cannabinoids, and it is the correct fractions of and the correct species of frankincense in order to provide optimal benefit. The ongoing research at the University of Oklahoma is certainly exciting, but we also have collaborations with the Metabolic Terrain Institute of Health out of Arizona, Dr. Naisha Winters, and her crew of a couple of hundred naturopaths and doctors that are adhering to the metabolic approach to cancer, and her fellowship, which is the Metabolic Terrain Institute of Health, are adopting our analytical methods and our ways of binning different cancers into different metabolic derangements, and then utilizing supplements like Pathways 1, 2, 3, and 4 to address those derangements specifically, is in alignment with what Dr. Windham is doing with DTAR and RGCC as liquid biopsies. There are so many different collaborations we have. And we're open to other collaborations. If you are a medical professional and you are interested in expanding our knowledge base of how these different supplements work in a clinical population, we're very open to collaboration and would welcome a phone call and a discussion.
Somebody just asked if
Sure.
Pathway 4 is resveratrol only.
No, Pathway 4 is a combination of 3 ingredients that use our Protosorb, what we used to call LPS technology. It is resveratrol bound to brown rice protein. It's EGCG bound to brown rice protein, and a little known polyphenol called fisetin, which is a very powerful polyphenol, also bound to brown rice protein. And then we add in of highly purified beta glucans from a company called Immudyne to finish it off. The combination of these four ingredients we believe is synergistic around different hypoxic and stem cell proliferation pathways, helping our body to get rid of cancer cells that are proliferating and shutting down both inflammation and proliferation pathways in different cancers by utilizing different mechanisms that are that these cancers are vulnerable to. Ultimately, we're not asking. We don't understand that some of the science of how these ingredients work is can be daunting. That's why we provide resources to folks like Dr. Windham and Keith Bishop to help navigate these questions with the patients.
Peggy Sue asked if she could buy your products in Europe.
You can. We actually, if you go to our website, you can place an order. We're actually going to have delivery duties prepaid available in the next month on our website. Right now, when you order, it will be delivered by DHL, and you will be responsible for the duties as it enters the country. Stay tuned for having duties prepaid, which is a much less expensive option in the next short amount of time.
Yeah, just be expectant that the current option does come with a little bit of a surprising price tag, what they're charging for those duties.
Yeah, we actually have a distribution point within Europe, and so the shipping charges are much less for most people.
Great. Thanks, Adam, for that.
Well, this one right here is the website, Fenbendazole Joe Tippens Protocol. That is one of the fraud sites.
Let's see if we can. I don't know if we can go up there. There we go. Oh.
So Joe, shall we re-emphasize at this point in time that you say there's two places that people can find you? They can find you at mycancerstory.rocks, which is your original blog. That's spelled the word my, CANCERSTORY, with a period and then ROCKS. And then by reading that blog, they can then gain access to your Facebook page. Is that correct?
Well, with an exception.
Okay.
Because there are so many attempts at fraud and multi-level marketers. People like Russ was my lead moderator. They're very serious about keeping those people out on the front end.
Right.
And so in order to gain access to the Facebook group, you have to answer multiple questions and prove that you actually have read the blog before you try to join. And through that, we have a password embedded in the blog, and we change it regularly. It's amazing. We last changed the password 60 days ago, and it's already out of date, and the fraudsters have figured it out.
Okay, so there is a test at the end of the lecture.
Yeah. You have to prove that you've read the blog, and we only allow direct cancer patients and direct caregivers to cancer patients. We don't let just anybody in there. And I've seen here one of the questions, where can I see some of the success stories? So in the Facebook group with over 50,000 people, the hashtag positive progress is used to report good results. And you can also read through all of the posts on the Facebook group and see where it hasn't worked for people.
Right.
And it's very transparent about what surrounds my blog, not any alternative cancer, not any other idea. We try to keep it focused.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Are there any other questions that we have here? It looks like we've covered the what was sent out, Joe. We have more here.
Joe, for those that joined late, we started this. I highly recommend, as the link gets posted for this particular a Q&A session, I'm sure it's going to be posted on Joe's Facebook page, but also posted on the blog. Share it with your friends or loved ones that need that basic education that came out of this particular Q&A, Facebook Q&A today. It's very important, and you may want to go ahead and rewatch it if you joined late, because this started out with a deep concern that Joe and his lead moderator had regarding people purchasing counterfeit product, fraud product, deep fake videos of Joe himself saying, "This is me, this is my website, buy from me," and it wasn't Joe. So please share with your
Incredible.
friends, give the warnings necessary. Let's keep people safe, and let's keep their money in their own pocket to be able to be spent on something where they will get something, rather than being conned and losing $600 or $800 a pop.
Correct.
Yeah. Joe, any final words?
No, I think that we've covered a lot here today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Well,
Wherever you are in the world, thanks for joining us. Joe, thank you for inviting us in today. We appreciate that so much.
You're welcome.
thank you.